Abraham's faith was tested at least 12 specific times. 1. Abram left Ur and Haran for an unknown destination at God's direction. 2. Abram directed a peaceful separation from Lot and settled at the Oaks of Mamre. 3. Abram rescued Lot from the 5 kings. 4. Abram gave a tithe of loot to the godly king of Salem, Melchizedek, and refused the gift of the king of Sodom. 5. Abram trusted God's promise that he would have a son. 6. Abraham received the promised land by faith, though the fulfillment would not come for many generations. 7. At God's command, Abraham circumcised every male in his family. 8. Abraham welcomed strangers, who turned out to be angels. 9. Abraham prayed for Sodom. 10. Abraham admitted to wrongdoing and took the actions needed to set things right. 11. Abraham negotiated a treaty with Abimelech concerning a well. 12. Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac. Why Abraham's name went from Abram to Abraham. Let's understand the Hebrew letter He. The very first person to have his name changed by Adonai, or Lord, was Abram or Abram. His name was changed to Avram or Abraham. Adonai, or Lord, inserted the letter He into Abram or Abram. When Adonai, or Lord, breathes into someone's life, he changes their name by adding a He or breath of the Spirit. Genesis chapter 17 verse 5. Your name will no longer be Abram or Abram, exalted father, but your name will be Avram or Abraham, father of many, because I have made you the father of many nations. Abram's or Abram's wife also had her name changed from Sarai with an I to become Sarah with an H. Genesis chapter 17 verse 15. God said to Avram or Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you are not to call her Sarai, her name is to be Sarah, meaning princess. Isaac's promised birth. Genesis chapter 17 verses 15 through 19. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her, yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations, kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face, and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? And Abraham said unto God, O that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. The sacrifice of Isaac. Genesis chapter 22 verses 1 through 12. And it came to pass after these things, that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father, and he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Genesis chapter 22 verses 13 through 24. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things, that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, she bare also Tebah, and Gaham, and Dahash, and Maachah. Just like in creation, God set the foundation for Israel through Abram. In creation we can see dry land appear or new life. In man, Abraham, we can see new life in many ways. 1. Abram to Abraham, nothing brings new life than a new name, an act of God. 2. Isaac was a gift from God. Abraham was in his 100s before he had Isaac, and Sarah had trouble conceiving. Again, an act of God. 3. Isaac was a gift from God. In turn made him righteous enough for a sacrifice. God had given Abraham his son's life back, in turn giving him life once again. Again, an act of God. Note, the mountain where Isaac was set for sacrifice is where Jesus was put on the cross. 4. The everlasting covenant or promise of the land of Canaan. New life for generations to come. Clearly an act of God.